Hey everybody, and welcome back to the second edition of Beyond the Pitch. I'm Ben Levin, your host and Vice Chairman of Crawley Football Club. I'm joined today by a very special guest and one of the club's newest partners, Dave Lynam of Kaizen Ticketing. Dave, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Ben. Good to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Yeah, we've had a good morning going through some ticketing and system new business, which is great, and enjoyed every part. So thanks for having me.
So how does it feel to be the official ticketing partner of Crawley Town Football Club now?
It's exciting. It's exciting. It's a little bit different than a usual launch for us as we're into the season already. It's not something we haven't done before. And it's, we like a challenge, and it's been challenging, but a lot of fun along the way. And we're just ready to go now.
Good. Well, it hasn't really been a challenge for us. You guys have been so great to work with. And we're excited to roll out, even though it's in the middle of the season, an improved ticketing platform, a better digital experience.
Yep.
We'll get into some of those details later, but really want to get to know you here, get to know your journey, and hear a little bit about the podcast that you hosted yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about it. So, fire away.
So you are a ticketing expert and you host your own podcast about the business of ticketing and sports. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I've not been prolific with episodes in the last year or so. It started off as an idea, I think it was pre-pandemic actually. So back in 2019, we were building Kaizen as a business, and I learned very quickly that podcasts were a new medium, if you like, to get to people. And probably for obvious reasons, there aren't that many ticketing podcasts out there. At the time, there weren't any. So I thought, why not? Let's give it a go and see if it's something that people resonate with. And I was quite surprised at how many people took the time to listen to me talking about ticketing, or with some guests about ticketing. And it took off for a little while. So it was good fun.
Well, hopefully we've got a couple thousand more people listening to you talk about ticketing today. Can you share a little bit about your background and, the early days at Wembley and the FA, what that was like?
Yeah, of course. So I always kind of make this joke about ticketing, saying you just fall into it, basically. No one ever leaves school, college, uni and decides they're going to get into a career in ticketing. You end up falling into it, and then it's just like this black hole that you never get out of. And you speak to most people that have been involved in ticketing, it's generally for 5, 7, 10, 20 years. And that was exactly the same for me. So back when I left school, I was an apprentice footballer, and I needed some extra money. My mum worked at the box office at Wembley Stadium, the old Wembley Stadium. And so she basically said that you can come and work here as a casual member of staff answering phones to pick up some extra cash whilst you're doing what you're doing. And just as the years went on, I ended up playing football less and doing ticketing more. And they knocked the stadium down. I was there for about 5 years. Then they knocked it down to rebuild it. And in the meantime, my boss at the time got a job at the Football Association as a ticketing manager. He called me up and said, "What are you doing? I need some help." And that's then how I started working at the FA.
Awesome. Did you get to go to any really memorable matches while you were working at Wembley, or work any memorable matches?
Yeah, for sure. So there was the great thing about Wembley was that there were so many just amazing events every year. I guess working in football, you don't appreciate how easy you have it working at a place like Wembley, because you don't have that kind of week-to-week thing going on, through a season. But the events that you do put on are global, under a lot of scrutiny, sometimes high security. So, not just football matches, but concerts obviously as well. So I think probably the most memorable was that last year of the stadium when everyone knew it was going to be knocked down. Some of the concerts, I think it was Bon Jovi was the last concert there, and not so much for the concert itself, because you're working, you're doing ticketing things, you're not watching the show, but it's afterwards. It's the drinks with your colleagues afterwards. We played a five-a-side game of football on the concourse when everyone had gone home, and had staff games on the pitch in those last few weeks and months before they knocked it down. That's once in a lifetime, and many people wouldn't get to experience that kind of stuff. So that will always be a big memory. I remember the last cup final there, which was not a classic by any stretch. It was probably one of the most boring games of football I've ever seen. But I think it was Chelsea, Aston Villa. But again, the pressure of that last game, wanted to go out on a high and do it right. Sort of off the pitch, if you like, was we were very proud of what we did.
So during that time period at Wembley and at the FA, what was the ticketing job like? What was the ticketing process experience like for a supporter?
Very, very old fashioned if you compare to what happens today. I think my kind of age, if you like, or generation in general is quite unique in the sense that we know the world pre-internet and obviously with the internet now as well. But back then, particularly at Wembley, it was very, very manual. We had to print lots and lots of physical tickets. Probably the most brutal period of the season for us was the playoffs, because what you would have to do is wait and see who won their respective semi-finals to then define what that allocation was going to be. And then overnight, print the paper tickets to be ready to go on the back of a courier to be with the club the following morning. So it meant that we'd probably be in the office all day through to about 3 or 4 in the morning, printing paper tickets to chuck into the back of a van that was on its way to wherever.
So were you also organizing them by alphabetically? Were you really good at knowing where your B's and your M's and your L's were?
So we were printing the allocation to the club. So, and then they were obviously going on and selling. So it was more about understanding the run into the playoffs, who was in line, who, you know, if a certain club got there, would they have a bigger or smaller part of the allocation, which ends of the stadium teams were having, and trying to map out all of those different scenarios, you know, a couple of weeks in advance. You could drive yourself crazy, you know, with all of the possible permutations.
And at that point, did you think, hey, ticketing's got a long way to go, or did it feel like it was a very similar industry to how it had been working for decades?
Yeah, I mean, well, at that point, you don't really know any different. So I just thought that was normal. You know, every summer we're going to spend some time doing this. And same with, you know, England matches taking place at the stadium. Everyone would phone up or they'd queue at the box office to buy a ticket. And that's what you knew. And you just knew that, you know, matches going on sale meant it was busy, you know, particularly for concerts at the old stadium as well. We'd all have to get in at 6:30 in the morning, ready for the phones to start at 7:30. Sometimes they'd order in bacon rolls for everyone and that kind of stuff. And you'd have a call centre of like 100 people just manning the phones, ready to take calls. So obviously really different to how we would do that same sort of thing today.
So when you talk to someone on the street, what are the odds that you've spoken to more people on the phone in your life than they have?
I'd say it's pretty high. I kind of learned from doing that job. For some weird reason, like postcodes, you can give me a postcode, I could probably tell you where in the country it is, because you speak to so many people from all over the country booking tickets. So a bit sad, but true.
That's very interesting. And then you found your way to Tottenham.
Yeah. So I spent about 6 years, I think it was, at the Football Association. It was an interesting time because England were on the road at that point. So we weren't playing home games at Wembley Stadium because that was being rebuilt. But the great thing about it was we were playing games all around the country, various football clubs, which meant as a ticketing person, I got to work with the respective ticket office managers at loads of different clubs around England. So you got to see firsthand how they ran their stadiums, how they did ticketing. And that was like a great learning curve for me. I went to Tottenham because I spent, like I said, 5 or 6 years at the FA. And a colleague of mine from the FA, a guy called Ian Murphy, who's still there running the ticket office now, he went across. Paul Barber, who was the commercial director at the FA's, obviously chairman now at Brighton, he was there as well. And they both said, look, if you'd like to come across, we could do with your help as well. So I jumped at the chance. I love working with them both. So got an opportunity to go and join them again.
Great. And thinking about where Tottenham is as a club, where they are very progressive in a lot of ways. What was the ticketing situation like back then? Were they already pushing into more digital and being more forward? Not
at first when I got there. It was actually quite the opposite. But we were in an era where we knew it could be better. So I had, I think my first season, a very steep learning curve of just how hard it was from working at the FA, where you looked after, I don't know, 6 to 8 internationals a year tops, maybe, and then obviously the FA Cup and FA Vase and Trophy finals, to an environment where we had a game every week, and every other week it was at home, and sometimes on a Tuesday night than a Saturday, and the pace and intensity was much higher. And you don't realise that, you know, how good you had it till you don't have it anymore. But so that took some getting used to. Going on sale for a game initially when I first got there would be people coming to the club to buy tickets in person or phoning up. Online sales was only really just a thing. wasn't particularly easy to do. So most people would just give us a call or try and get through on the phone or come and see us.
And what era of Tottenham was that? Who were the big players at that time, the manager?
So it would have been the Martin Jol era. He was the manager for the first couple of seasons I was there. It was the stage where they were just back in Europe again. So playing Europa League, so Thursday nights was a big feature of my life for a while. And yeah, it was an exciting time where they were not necessarily the force that they're known as today, but they were definitely a team on the up and looking dangerous and definitely capable of an upset.
Exciting. So at that point in time, were you thinking about going out on your own, trying to build a ticketing solution, or did that take some time for you to get to?
It took a bit of time, probably after 2 seasons, maybe into my 3rd season at Spurs. I used to sit in the office and joke with some of my colleagues and say, if I built a ticketing system, this is what I would do. And, I guess where I got to the point of building my own system came from was being a user of a system, many different systems over the years. Sometimes a frustrated user of those systems as well. And you kind of think, look, this isn't been designed by someone who has to do the job. And that's what gave me the idea for, if I've got the chance one day to do it, I would.
So what were the major pain points on either the employee side or the fan side that you were trying to solve?
So the big thing that I always felt was every system that I used, it was never built for the people in the box office. It was almost like the afterthought. So I always said if I was going to build a ticketing system, I would be able to bring that kind of point of view, if you like, to the design of it, because it almost felt like the things that we were doing in the ticket office at Spurs, we were doing workarounds a lot, or we were doing things that hadn't really been thought through, and just kind of getting by, basically. So a big feature of what we always try to think about these days at Kaizen is like, that works for the supporters, great, but then how do we make sure that's just as good, easy, fast, quick for the guys in the box office?
So Kaizen is launched in 2010, 2012, somewhere in there?
It was 2014.
2014.
Yeah, it was.
So 10 years, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in our testimonial year. The company was launched on Valentine's Day.
Romantic.
I'm a romantic at heart. So it's our 10th year. This is our 10th year in business.
That's great. And tell me about the journey of finding partners, driving the thesis, getting investment. What was it like starting a business?
So you start a business because you think, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to have lots of extra time. Maybe I can do the school run and spend more time with my kids. And it's the total opposite. That's the truth. Like it's brutal. You have the hardest boss, worse than anywhere else you've worked, because it's either you, because you need to get stuff done, or you're answering to your customers. You need to be there to deliver and support what they need. So it took me a few years to come to terms with the fact that life wasn't going to be easier. It's going to get harder, but you have to also, you just embrace that. And the big thing for me was, you're working for something that you believe in and you really want to do. Is your sort of a bit of a purpose. So you're prepared to deal with those things. And, I wouldn't have it any other way. I always kind of joke that I'm not really employable, because I've been so long in this kind of mode, if you like, as someone who runs their own company now. I love the challenges it brings. So we'll keep doing that for as long as I possibly can.
Who did you bring in with you to start the project? How did you put the right skills around you to get it done?
So after leaving Tottenham, I actually spent a couple of years at Ticketmaster, and I learned that side of the business, because up until that point, I think I'd been working in ticket office at that point for maybe 12, 14, something like that, 12 years. And I didn't know anything about the technology that we were using every day. So it's easy to sit there and say, well, this should be better, this should be different. But it was only working at Ticketmaster, and I went there on a 2-year contract, I think it was, initially to work just on London 2012, the Olympics. And it was through working on that project, and then just by things developing, I was also involved in the Euros the same year as well. I started working with a chap called Chairman Ben, who was an engineer at Ticketmaster when we worked there together. He was working on all the tournament software as well. And I went there as a product manager. So we spent a lot of time together building out features, working how things should work, and became good friends. And he was one of the, well, he probably is the brightest engineer I've ever worked with. He understands ticketing. He's worked at Ticketmaster for, at that point, I think it was about, again, sort of 10, 12 years. So he knew everything that there was to know about building ticketing systems. So when I had the idea to start the company, there was no way I was going to get him to join from day one, because by that point he was like chief architect. He was overseeing global teams. He wasn't going to drop everything to, you know, see if my idea was any good. So it took 5 years to convince him to leave. And eventually, yeah, he did. So 5 years ago, he came and joined us.
And how did you start the business? How did you start building the product? How did you go out and acquire clubs?
So the first thing to do, I had to learn how to sell. Which no one tells you when you start a business, but that is the first thing you need to do, because if you can't sell it, then you're going to struggle. And initially I was selling a concept, an idea, you know, and just understanding if people really needed another ticketing system. The other challenge you're then going to have is you're risky, because if I came to Crawley Town 10 years ago and offered them a ticketing system that hadn't really been built yet, I'd have been told, come back when you're ready. So we started off, it was myself and my wife Hayley. It was us two who really sort of started things moving. And I had the idea to start off with non-league football, just because I felt as a proof of concept we could build a ticketing system for a football club. Non-league clubs do everything that a football league club does as well, but just on a much smaller scale in some cases. And so if we could prove that we could get some software working that could sell season tickets, that would sell match tickets, have memberships, then we could build from there and get to a point where we could prove and become less risky, and then start to look at football league clubs in a few years. We learnt really quickly ticketing's not the biggest problem that non-league clubs have, but then we also realised that we could build some software that did ticketing and things like merchandise sales or other non-football events, and help clubs to generate revenue essentially.
So who are some of your first customers?
So first ever club we signed was Kings Lynn Town. At the time, their chairman, who's still their chairman today, he basically owned a hotel just outside of Kings Lynn. And I tried to track him down for about 3 weeks. Tried him at the club. He was never at the club because at the time they were a step 3 non-league club. They didn't only have full-time staff. And I realised he worked at this hotel, so I tracked him down at his hotel, phoned him, gave him the pitch, and he said, "It sounds great, but I need a deal." So I was like, "Well, okay, what do you want?" And so he was willing to give us a shot. And he was great, because from there, he said, if you ever want to come to a game and meet the opposition chairman, and I can introduce you to them. And he really helped us to sort of get in front of other people. And it just, like a lot of things, as you'll know with football clubs, they all talk to each other, and maybe clubs see another club doing something, they'll want to give it a try. And so, he was super helpful in sort of getting us in front of new clubs. And then that sales process became a bit easier, because all of a sudden we were elsewhere, people could look at references in other places, and we were then able to build a bit of a business from there. And so we sort of progressed with other and bigger non-league clubs after that.
Yeah, and now you're getting recommendations not just from Step 3 clubs, but even from the EFL themselves pointed me in your direction. So you've obviously done something really great, and we got some great references from clubs in our league and in League 2. Were you able to talk about some of your other clients and the success stories you've had with other similar clubs?
Sure, yeah. So, so we originated in non-league, progressed now into the Football League 3 years ago. So our first EFL club was Cheltenham Town, followed quickly by Mansfield Town. We've been working closely with them. Like I say, this is our 3rd season with both.
So do clubs have to be towns in order to work with these?
We've got a few cities, and we've got a few rovers in there. But yeah, we've got mainly towns. But yeah, so Cheltenham and Mansfield were kind of first in. And I mean, I think probably Mansfield are a great success story. Obviously, they're now up in League 1. When we first started, their season ticket numbers were around sort of 2,300. They've got out on record now saying they've just passed 6,000 this season. Obviously, the promotion helps, but even last season they were up to sort of 5 quite comfortably. And they had a very sort of in-person culture. People would turn up to the ticket office to buy everything, even if it was available online. But over the last couple of seasons, we've introduced what I'd like to think is a much better online purchase experience for them. And that's shown by people not needing to come down. They're still available. If people want to come down and chat, they still have the box office open, but it's just another way for people to access their tickets.
So overall, if you could take us sort of through the arc of the ticketing business, what's changed? Where are we now? And how do you guys stand out? Yeah,
I mean, it's evolving so much faster. If you take like the last 5 years compared to the 5 years before that, the technology advancements obviously is happening a lot quicker. I think the big thing is like fan expectation as well is now becoming higher. People expect to be able to buy a ticket on their phone. People expect to be able to get online and buy a ticket and not have to call somebody. So that's probably like at its core. In terms of how it's changed, I think the technology in use, obviously football's slightly behind the curve in terms of adoption. So, everyone is talking about AI and machine learning, and I don't think that's going to be adopted by football clubs next season or anything. I think it will take a few years before it becomes in a standard. But that's definitely the direction that the world is moving in. And so I think the thing you have to be careful is you've got to meet people where they are. So I think as a football club, going out there and offering, just an easy way to buy tickets online is actually perceived by the fans as a great step forward, rather than being pushed. Everyone's got to download an app. Everyone's got to do, things that I don't necessarily feel comfortable with yet. And you let people develop at their own pace. But having the option there available for those that do want to take advantage of new tech and new features, then making sure that that is available to them. But not forgetting there will always be people that want to come to the club, have a chat with someone at the ticket office, take their paper ticket away because it's a souvenir. That's going to be around for many more years as well. So I think where we stand out is making sure we balance both.
So this is going to be easy for our fans to adjust to. Can you talk about exactly what that sign-on process looks like and what it's going to take to get someone started?
Yeah, so I think as we stand now, all the season ticket holders have been imported anyway, so they'll get an email inviting them to activate an account online. And then that's useful for them for when you have your home cup games and they want to access their seat for that game. So definitely something that they should be thinking about doing now just to get registered. For new fans, there's a registration process going through online, all the things you'd expect to be able to sign up in terms of your name, address, setting a password so you can log back in the future and buy tickets. And in terms of the purchase journey, it's as you'd expect. We try and keep it as simple as possible. You can pick the best seats available. You can pick from the seat plan. You can choose whether you have that ticket delivered to you as an e-ticket or a mobile ticket to save on your phone. And you've got an account feature there where you can add like friends and family. So things like away matches, if you want to buy your away matches online, you can do that. And if you've got a group of people you travel with, they're saved in your account. So you can just assign tickets to those people that you're traveling with as well. So yeah, we try and make it as simple as we can. I think the record for buying a ticket at the moment is held by someone from Mansfield. They did it in 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
The average is about 20 seconds, but this person, they're a season ticket buyer.
Wow. So it's the process is going to be easier, very intuitive, digital delivery.
Yes.
What are some of the other benefits to our club and our staff that you expect us to see?
So it sounds from talking to people around the club that, again, similar to the Mansfield situation, you're quite walk up heavy at the moment. So hopefully if we can make that easier, maybe easier for people to access tickets online, give it a try, and it works for them, that becomes a bit more of a habit, which in turn benefits, I guess, the stress levels of staff on a match day. You haven't got that last minute rush of, 2:45 and everyone's trying to get in and, trying to sell tickets to the late crowd, and the stress that comes with it. And also as a fan, kind of knowing you've got your ticket in advance, you can have an extra beer, you can take your time and just scan in at the gate as well. So hopefully it's twofold in terms of the benefit.
Yeah, it's great. And one of the things about moving to Kaizen is that we want to improve the fan experience, not only from shopping for tickets, purchasing tickets, but actually entering the turnstiles at the time that they want, not having to be jammed in the ticket office. Have you seen reduced lines at some of your other clients and their clubs on match day?
Yeah, for sure. I keep talking about Mansfield, but they have a great case study for this sort of stuff, where they were talking about averaging about 400 in-person sales on match day. Now they're less than 100. Carlisle United are another club we work with. We came in to work with them during the playoffs last season, and we've worked with them for the last couple of seasons. And they've said they've seen, I think it was a 40% increase of online sales within that first 6 months. And the big benefit they were talking about is it just means that ticket office staff are still there and still able to serve people, but it's more for the more nuanced type queries as opposed to, could I just have 2 adults for today? So if someone has a season ticket they want to move for one game, or there's some inquiries about away matches, they can take the time to have a chat about what someone needs.
That's great. So one of the big things that we're hoping to improve on our current system and our current processes is the ability for people just to look up prices, to plan in advance, to get a ticket before they even come. But we also don't want to have too many hiccups, too many growing pains. What are some frequently asked questions that you think that you've seen across other transitions that our fans might benefit from hearing about today?
I think one that's come up, we get security audited every year. And we were told a few years ago we needed to increase our password length. So it's like 14 characters now is like the new minimum standard, apparently. So we did that. And that catches people out. I think there are very few people that you have your go-to passwords that you use. Few of them are 14 characters. But that sometimes catches people out, having to think of a 14 character password. So that might get a few people. And then once you've got your account and you're set up, it's pretty much plain sailing. So the one thing that I would say is just don't leave it all to the last minute. It's an opportunity to get on and buy your ticket sooner. Obviously get access to better seats the earlier that you do it. And then the rest of it kind of just works itself out. I think they genuinely are few ways to go wrong once you're on that page with your options of tickets available. It's just a step-by-step process.
Awesome. So what's next for Kaizen? When are we going to read about you signing with the Premier League club?
It's in the plan. We're on the way. Hopefully we can take a few clubs with us as well. That's the idea. We very much about growing with the clubs we work with. If you look at many of the clubs that we work with, where we started and where they currently are, a lot of them have moved up a couple of leagues, or drastically increased the numbers coming to games week by week, which is great. But our goal is to do ticketing at as high a level as we possibly can. That's what we want to be. So I always say, if I can go back and make it full circle, and one day I'm meeting Daniel Levy at the training grounds to talk about a deal, then my job is done. I'm happy. So let's see if it happens.
Great. Well, Dave, thanks for the partnership. We're so excited to be launching. Tickets will be on sale live for the October 1st Mansfield match.
Yep.
And it's just been great working with you, and we're looking for lots of success going forward.
Great. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.